The COVID-19 pandemic took a toll on everyone mentally, and we all had to find different ways to cope. Sexologist and relationship expert Dr. Nikki Goldstein sat down and shared her experience with the live streaming platform Jasmine, which she says really got her through quarantine. She shared why she thinks this platform helps fulfill one of our basic human needs and helps improve mental health for both members and creators.
My hesitation at first was, am I going to be bombarded with people who assume that I am there as a cam model and I'm going to be taking my clothes off and getting sexual? Is that what's going to happen? And I was so pleasantly surprised how different it was. And I've said this to a lot of people, even using Jasmine in comparison to, say, using social media. I'm bombarded on social media with really dirty sexual comments, and it frustrates me because I think I'm talking about sex, but do you have to go there? And then when I was logging online and my favorites was going live and being able to interact with people, it was a space where people wanted to be able to connect with someone that was real, somebody that, and I think also to being in the position of an expert, I wasn't there selling them anything. I wasn't there with any other agenda but to actually connect with them. And they felt that. So they would log on, and a lot of the times, the questions that I would get were so in depth and intelligent. I was quite blown away. And I would be able to get into these conversations with people and have other people chime in a really safe space where it was okay to talk about anything to do with sex, love, dating, relationship. Like, that was a given. We can have those conversations without it being taken in the wrong context. I wasn't going to click off, but it made me realize that when it comes to this area of our lives, yes, there are people that want to get off, but there are also people that want information. They want to have conversations. They want to interact with people talking about these subjects in a way that feels safe, not necessarily smutty, maybe even a bit thoughtful and intelligent. And with that, it helped them to make sense of certain things in their life. The connection was there for people that were regular. So there would always be certain people, and you kind of know their names, and they come in and they really added flavor to those live sessions. So they were the people you got the most connection with. There was one character in particular, and he made all of my lives. His username was Dr. Nikki's BF. And at first I was like, oh, you're my best friend. And he goes, no, I'm your boyfriend. And it was done in this really, he had this fantastic sense of humor. It wasn't smutty. It wasn't scary. I spoke about being in a relationship and having a partner. And he was just always in there dropping really funny comments, or he'd come in with these compliments, or if there ever was someone that was giving me a hard time, which was so rare, he's jumping to my defense and things like that. You're like, I had no idea who this person is, but it added this connection to those situations. It felt during a time, especially when this lockdown was so new and we were all kind of just sitting there going, oh, this is different, and this is what loneliness feels like. We were able to connect in a safe space. Also, too, with being honest about what we were doing. There was no hidden agenda. We were there to have some conversations. They wanted to get some information from me. I wanted questions from them. I wanted their input. And it ran really smoothly. And I've never experienced anything like that on an online platform that did work so well.
I would even online sometimes get guys that would write to me as if I was like a supplemental girlfriend for them, and they liked having that type of connection. And I remember one time, one of the guys saying that, just that daily content and connection, he looked forward to it so much that at a point where he was thinking about suicide, it brought him enough joy throughout his day to get him through. And sometimes I think even just having a little something for people who are really going through it can be enough to get them to that next level.
I always like comparing Jasmine to Instagram because it's something we use so heavily. If you're an influencer on Instagram, you could be putting up posts and there's people who feel like they have a connection with you and they're commenting, but you're not necessarily connecting back. Your focus is more so about, am I getting a paid post? How many likes am I getting? All this kind of stuff. Whereas when you're on a platform like Jasmine, I find that it's that level of connection that helps people because you're able to validate emotions. There's a great team behind Jasmine that I was always able to be connected with, which was great because I could chime in and go, what do I do in this situation? I'm really concerned about this person. But that person was able to be heard. And this is where I feel like when you are in these positions where you're sitting online and you have a little bit of an audience, over 10 people kind of thing, I really feel like where we miss out is our responsibility and duty of call. And I think people forget about that you might have people that are talking to you, they're going through a tough time, that are relying on your content and your interaction. And you need to be more mindful of that because sometimes you need to stop and address what's going on or validate how they're feeling because you're in this position of power where you can actually make a difference to someone. And we forget that sitting online because that's what I found was happening so much, especially during those live sessions or people messaging me, is that I was going through enough of a tough time myself. I was separated from my partner. I had to go to a different state. I was in lockdown and I was able to talk about that. But there were people also that were reaching out to me about their situations. And you realize that you're in this important position where you could help them just by validating it and just by acknowledging it and just someone being able to say, I hear you, I see you, hey, this sucks, we're all in this together. And that for me was the biggest take home. And I think the biggest awareness is that it really changed very in the beginning how I interacted during those sessions because I went, hang on, these are real people with real concerns and I'm able to help them and do something during this time. And it was a surprise to me because I'd gone from entering this platform thinking, what am I going to find? Am I going to get people wanting me to take my clothes off? And I was so meticulous in terms of my content. I'd map everything out and we'd work out, what kind of lives I was doing and what videos I was posting. And they always had an agenda. And it always amazed me is that you'd start off with this agenda and I'd have sometimes dot points written down. So I knew where I was going. Maybe I had 45 minutes. I always went overtime. I'd log on for 20 minutes, half an hour, hour and 15 minutes would go and I'd be like, oh, there you go. But I'd have these dot points down. I was like, this is where I want to go with it. But then during so many of those sessions, it was just stopping also too and focusing on what people were saying there and realizing that you can't just be the driver of your content. You also need to be responding and validating the audience that you're talking to because they are the people that are there keeping you alive. They're keeping you on that platform. You need an audience. But if you don't address their needs, then what are you really doing there?
You bring up a really good point. You're such an amazing interview, by the way. You just really give amazing sound bites.
Thank you.
But yeah, you bring up this point of how you realize the immense power that you were having on other people. If you can, I'd love you to talk more about your experience as the creator or the speaker and how that felt for you. Did you feel validated? You were allowing these people to be seen. What were the emotional rewards of that? Obviously, a platform like Jasmine, you have monetary rewards, but were there emotional rewards that you had?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because this was one thing that kept me going in the middle of lockdown because it was very scary for me. I'd gone from a period where I was really busy with work. Just before everything hit, I was over in New Zealand doing all this work. I was working on a book, had all these contracts. And then all of a sudden overnight, everything that I had worked so hard for and so hard to keep disappeared. Like so many other people. I never forget that time where people were just saying, I had this contract go, this contract. It was just instantaneous. And I think it threw so many people and it threw me into such a mental headspace I live in Sydney with my partner. I ended up packing up my car because I've got elderly parents on the Gold Coast, which is a lot safer area. It's not a city. So we had decided that it was safer for me. I'm also immunocompromised to go to the Gold Coast. I'd never done the drive before on my own. It's 10 hours in a car. So I packed up this little car. I had just accepted the fact that my work had just disappeared. I was leaving my partner and off I went. And as that was all happening, that was when I was in negotiations to come on board with Jasmine. And that had even gone from me coming over to New York to do the launch. I was so excited about all that. It was a great opportunity to, hang on, we can still do this online. We just now have to pivot everything to online as well, including interviews, meetings, all of that. So what really happened for me emotionally is I got a purpose. And I was during this time where it's very difficult when, especially being a sexologist and having to battle so hard for your work, because there's always someone that's going to criticize you, pull you down. The subject matter is really hard, especially in Australia. People can be very narrow-minded. So I battled so hard to have this platform that I did in mainstream media and get that work. And watching it disappear was horrible for me, and it made me question everything. Then I find myself online, and I find myself able to do something where I could actually feel like I was making a difference and I could see the impact. When you're on TV or when you're working for a PR company, you really have no idea who you're talking to. A lot of the times I think you feel very altered because you have so many pulls with you. You have a PR company, you have a brand, and you have a network telling you what you can say, what you can't say, who you need to be. And it can be very frustrating when you have an agenda and you have morals and values and a way to talk about things, but people aren't letting you say that because it's too taboo or it's not in line with their messaging. When you jump onto an online platform, you are really free to be yourself. So I was able to be authentically me, help people, see the rewards, interact, share a bit of my personal life as well, which you don't get to do in mainstream media. I don't get to always talk about myself. I'm pigeonholed as an expert, not a human being. And at the end of the day, my life and what I do and everything behind it affects the content that I'm giving, because that is the way that it happens. There is no such thing as an expert who is completely neutral. You have your education, but you also have your experiences in your life that will shape the content that you present. So with Jasmine, I was also able to be me and just shake off a lot of that control that had been put on me. So I was quite surprised as well, the validation that I got emotionally. It kept me going. I mean, I was at home and you're scratching your head as to what you do, like we were modifying, like, oh, we're going to exercise at home, like how's this all working? And with Jasmine, when I had my lives and my content, I would get dressed, I would put on, not a lot of makeup, like it wasn't stage makeup, but I'd at least brush my hair and make it look nice and put on a bit of mascara and lippy and play with a background. And it gave me not only something to do and keep me going, but the type of work was rewarding. I think also, well, when you talk about the emotional validity from it, you can't also to leave out the financial, because one of the difficult things with a modern expert or anybody who has a profile is that you are expected so much to give away your free time. And it's hard because at the end of the day, we're people, we have, bills to pay, we have lives to support. And it still amazes me to this day, the amount of communication I get from people saying, can you come and do this for an affiliate link? Or can you come and do that? And I've realized that every time I'm doing something, I'm giving away my energy, I'm giving away my time. And it's not the half an hour that you think it is the pre-interviews, it's the emails, it's the getting ready for it, it's all of that. And that is time that I could have be doing something else with my life or focusing on how I'm making a living, because I have to keep the ship that is, Dr. Nikki Goldstein going. And in order to be able to provide great social media content and videos and update things. I have people that work for me. So I think also too, being in a situation where you can see the benefit from people, you're interacting, you've got a purpose, but you're also being financially rewarded for it. I think it was really powerful for me because I could continue to earn an income. And also, when you are earning an income, you want to give back even more. If someone is rewarded, and I think we do this terribly as women, right? Men are really good at saying, I'm worth this. Women are like, yeah, okay. Like, we get really funny about money. But at the end of the day, when someone says to you, you're worth this, you're being validated, you know what that does to you? That gives you that sense of self-worth. And you go, you know what? I am good at this and I can do this. And I'm going to show that person who is hiring me or paying for my content that I can do a kick-ass job. So the type of work that you do when you are financially rewarded from a mental aspect, I think is a lot better, because you want to get out there and you want to show that person that what they're paying for is valuable content, that you're not just sitting around, kind of adding, there's people that just blog and they just kind of talk about nothing and you think, oh, this is interesting. You want to be that person that is giving good content and is putting your everything into that role. And if you don't feel validated either by the people that are interacting with you or the people that are paying you, then you're eventually going to burn out and go, what's the point? So it was this really interesting experience. And to be honest, I really miss it. Like now being heavily pregnant and being at home and back in isolation, I do miss being able to share those things, because I haven't publicly spoken really about being pregnant, but that would have been something I would have spoken about on Jasmine, because I would have had those people that I can share my personal life with and they can share back with me. And, there is a validation with that. So I do really miss being able to jump on those lives, especially, and have those interactions and not only give back, but also receive, the interaction in return.
Yeah, and you were so good at it. To be honest, I saw some of your content that you had done for Jasmine, and I loved your energy and what you had to say. And that's part of why we wanted to have you on this series, because what you gave was very valuable. So thank you.
And I must say, the co-lives, one of my favorite Jasmine moments is, so one of the other experts on there, Dr. DeWitt, we actually we studied together and we're great friends, and he's such a character. So when it came, there was a trial option, I think, for a while where we could do co-lives together. We just had so much fun, because that was another thing, is that being in Canada and Australia, we don't get to work together and we don't get to do a lot of things together. And as soon as that option came in, we were like, yes, let's jump in. And being able to be on that split screen, and, it adds another element. Like, it's also harder because you're looking for you're looking at the comments, you're trying to interact, but every so often I found it really enjoyable to be able to have another person in there and, do those kind of special lives. I think it's evolving, but I think we are still associating it so much with a more erotic type of sexuality. It's life-changing, but it's also complex.
Beautiful.
So
thank you so much. This was an incredible interview.